Bishop William Callahan of the Diocese of La Crosse, Wisconsin, has taken a stand. He sent private letters to his priests ordering that an announcement be read from the pulpit, no less, on the fourth Sunday of Advent. And what did that letter tackle? What big issue did it tackle? What group is it going to do something about? An abusive, scandalous group? Drum roll, please. He's going to take down the traditional Latin Mass Catholics. Yes, His Excellency is going to cancel the traditional Latin Masses in his diocese. And it started at the first of the year, just a couple of days ago. First of the year, no more Latin Mass. To which I scratch my head, and I'm sure those of you who are not Catholic do the same. Really? Really? Cracking down on Latin Mass, folks? Those large families that show up in the big, giant, long, extended vans, all those little kids, they're the problem? In the middle of I think I read just recently, I think it was Madison, Wisconsin, 70 out of 103 churches closed or are to close over the next couple of years because nobody's going to church. And then right next door in La Crosse, they're shutting down the parishes that are packed to the gunnels with young families, with future, with vocations, with kids. They're shutting them all down. The photos that you see up on the screen right now. These are of the Mass at St. James the Less on Christmas Day, just this past Christmas Day, a week or so ago. The final Mass in that church now was January 1st, 2023. Happy New Year. No more Mass. And that Mass was attended by 275 parishioners, as usual, mostly young families. So as a practicing Catholic, we're all going, what's going on here? Of course, people outside the church are just scratching their head going, never even seen anything like this in business and religion or anything else. Everything's falling apart. You got one thing that's working really, really well, and for absolutely no reason that makes any sense, they're shutting it all down. Friends, it's really difficult to not come up with one of two possibilities. Either they're insane or they're demonic, people who are responsible for this. Why is this happening? Well, the answer, I'm not even going to blame the bishop. I'm going to get into a second. I'm going to talk about how, in my opinion, my humble opinion as a layman, this bishop should tell the Vatican to pound sand. But the real reason, the real culprit here is this guy, Francis. He thinks the Latin Mass of history is divisive. He thinks that the folks attending it are not adequately impressed with the Second Vatican Council. Now, we'll have Walter put some video we've used before. This is of our parish here in St. Paul, our diocesan parish, but they all look the same. This is what these culprits, these bad guys, this is what they look like. Now, they're not going after the predators so much, they're going after these people. These people need to be shut down, you see on your screen right now. Attending Latin Masses, young families. Lots and lots and lots of little kids. Now, the people you see on your screen right now, 99% of them, they're too young. They wouldn't know Vatican II from Vatican stew. They're not talking about Vatican II. We've gone over this in the past. These are just people who have found an oasis in the middle of a crisis. A place where their souls are fed, where their children are not scandalized, where nobody's chasing the kids around the basement. You see? Just a home, a spiritual home, where healthy little communities are growing up. But you see, for the gold guys in Rome, Vatican II was Woodstock, man. It was their deal, man. It was groovy. They haven't gotten over it. Just as they haven't gotten over themselves. Now, the church is in absolute chaos since Vatican II. Thousands and thousands of churches and schools and hospitals gone, closed forever. Priesthood is now a gay profession. They mock the church. They mock the bishops. It's all over. And in the middle of all of that, of that apocalyptic scenario in the church. You got World War in Eastern Europe budding now, coming again. You got the great apostasy raging. In the middle of all that, this aging modernist Jesuit pontiff, like some mad Caesar, is ordering his bishops to shut down the little people who are still going to Mass. Now, I'm going to talk directly to the bishops tonight because we're fairly desperate trying to reach these men. Remember, it started with Francis canceling private masses in the Basilica of St. Peter in the Vatican. That's where it all started.
Edward Pettin, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register, joins us now. Ed, great to see you. So tell us, what exactly did the letter say about celebrating private masses in the Basilica?
Well, this came rather out as a surprise, out of the blue, rather, because what this letter said is that there's individual celebrations of the Mass are suppressed.
So it started with the Novus Ordo. Now he's finally gotten around to wiping out or trying to wipe out the traditional Latin Mass as well. Cancel it all. And now this particular cancellation, I'm sorry, Bishop Callahan, but this particular cancellation in La Crosse, Wisconsin, is a humdinger. This is the home of Monsignor Jeffrey Burriel, the former General Secretary of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the guy who made headlines a year or so ago, headlines all over the world after he got caught using the gay hookup app Grindr by the Pillar, remember? And it's not something you like to look back on, but the whole world got to see that. That was fun. Now that fella, he comes from La Crosse, Wisconsin. His bishop is the guy I'm talking about who just shut down the Latin Masses. Haven't the people in La Crosse and everywhere else gone through enough? Your Excellency, they just got through COVID. Their churches were shut. You shut their churches down, remember? They couldn't go to confession. They couldn't go to receive the Blessed Sacrament. They couldn't go to Mass. They couldn't go to school. They've been through hell, Your Excellency. How can you do this to them? How do you wake up in the morning and say, I think I'm going to do this to all these little people, these kids, these families have been through hell? And so many people have simply left your church, Your Excellency. You know the numbers better than I. And now you're going to shut these, you have, as of the first of this year. You've shut the booming parishes down? Isn't that embarrassing? Are you sleeping okay? No, I get it. I get it. The culprit here, obviously, is Francis, is the Vatican. But how can you comply with this? How can you obey? And think of the scandal in your own diocese of La Crosse. We all got to see it, nationwide, worldwide. A powerful priest, a Monsignor, accused of using a gay app all over the world practically, in gay bars everywhere. He's tracked in numerous cities for a couple of years from 2018 to 2020, even while he was on assignment for the U.S. Bishops' Conference. And as soon as he got busted by this outfit called the Pillar, he resigned immediately. Kind of suggests he was guilty, doesn't it? That's the kind of thing we've all been living through. That's just another proud moment to be a Catholic in this country. Here he is. Here's the Monsignor standing right next to the Pope himself. But down there in La Crosse, they're hunting down the trad cats, the traditional Catholics. That's a big problem. Finally, somebody's taking them down.
And carrying a heavy burden.
Father Greg came out to his congregation in this Milwaukee suburb about 3 years ago at age 51.
I am a gay priest.
Your Excellency, it's something of a miracle that any of us bother going to Mass at all anymore, given that kind of scandal. That's the level of scandal that we're all subjected to. Just barely hanging on to stay in this church because the scandal is so bad, is so out of control.
McCarrick was the public face when the U.S. Council of Bishops issued its report about decades of abuse by priests. Here he is on NBC's Meet the Press.
Do you believe there's a special place in hell for men who represent Christ on earth and abuse their flock?
There is certainly a special, terrible judgment on someone who would abuse the trust that a priest must have, that a priest does have.
But McCarrick's own behavior became the focus last month when he was removed from the ministry. The Archdiocese of New York said an accusation that he had molested a 16-year-old altar boy nearly 50 years ago was credible. McCarrick denied it. Now there are more allegations. The New York Times reports that beginning in the 1980s, when McCarrick was a New Jersey bishop, he inappropriately touched young adult seminarians. The newspaper said church officials knew of the allegations as he rose in the hierarchy.
And they're coming after us now, shutting our little oases down. I happen to remember, and I'm sure you do, how many of your own brother bishops simply ignored Summorum Pontificum. They didn't have any problem ignoring that at all. You remember? Well, now it's your turn. It's your turn to ignore the motu proprio of Pope Francis. Just ignore it. If you don't want history to put you in that Nuremberg courtroom, right? Just ignore it. What's your defense going to be? When all these little kids that are going to traditional Latin Mass, those families blow apart, they no longer have the spiritual oases, they begin getting into drugs and sex and everything else, and they end up losing the faith because you shut down their community. What's your defense going to be in front of the divine tribunal? I was just obeying orders. Haven't we heard that before? Haven't we been mocking Nazis for 75 years for trying that? Now you are going to do it, excellencies. You obeyed orders. You obeyed an order to actually carry out a spiritual holocaust against thousands of young families and kids. You're going to shut these kids down. Why? You think this is what Jesus wants you to do? Well, you're going to do whatever you're going to do, Your Excellencies, but remember this, you're dealing with a maniac. And sooner or later, Francis is coming after you. As I say, it started by him canceling private Novus Ordo Masses in his own basilica. He's going to come after you eventually. And your choice down the line is going to be simple. Apostatize or finally disobey Francis, as God wants you to do for the good of the faith. What's it going to be? You're just going to keep going along with this? When he legalizes gay marriage, he's already he's okayed gay unions.
I think he's creating it.